All right, then it's 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. My microphone's on, we're recording, we are good. Welcome, everybody. This is our second class that we're doing from the Egoscue Method of Health Through Motion book. So Pete Egoscue's original 1992 book, and we are going to be doing the rotation and imbalance routine. So the good news about this is that every single person in the entire world is a condition 2 posture. I have never, ever seen somebody who is perfectly balanced from side to side. So there should be something in this for almost everybody. And as ever, you just need to stop doing anything that aggravates your normal symptoms of pain and tension. You can take a break. You can do something else that suits you, but just don't carry on through things that cause you pain. We're probably going to overrun a bit tonight. This routine has got 13 exercises in it. And so, yeah, normally my classes are shorter than that, but we've also got our members Q&A after class. So if you want to hang around, ask me any questions, I'll be more than happy to help you. But of course you can go whenever you need to as well. In terms of equipment today, you're going to need a dining room chair. We're going to do an exercise where we stretch off a quad, and we're going to put our foot on a chair like this, but we're also going to use the chair for assisted runner's stretch, which we did last week. You're going to have a cushion or a couple of cushions to hand as ever. And we're also going to be doing an exercise called gravity drop, where we hold onto a staircase and drop our heels off the staircase like this. If your house doesn't allow for that, that's fine. Some of you might have a slant board that you can use with your back against the wall in wall drop. And if you don't have a slant board, I just want you to kind of stand like this against the wall. So stand parallel with your body back against the wall, and you're going to need some wall space as well. Okay, so for the sake of time, let's get going and let's have some fun. We are just, as ever, going to start with our standing assessment. So shake everything off, close your eyes. Might be the first time today that you're kind of tuning into your body and seeing how you feel. Relax your belly, relax your arms. You're not pulling your shoulders back. Just sense into what's going on and do a bit of a body check. So where is painful? What levels of pain might you have? Do you have any tension in your body? So tension is, in a way, more problematic because it's the part that becomes more normal. So it becomes quite easy to ignore tension and think that it's normal. And then your brain kind of blanks it out and you get used to it. But that tension is a message from your body you need to listen to. So notice what is still talking to you, even if it's not painful. And lastly, it's more subtle, but get a sense of weight distribution through your feet. Get a sense of where your arm is in space, one side than the other. And then at the end of the class, we'll do this again. And hopefully you're going to feel positive differences. And if you don't, it's not the routine for you to kind of carry on doing. Okay, so our first exercise is a standing exercise. And I think it's the one that we started with last week. We're going to do arm circles. So I'm coming towards the screen so you can see what I'm doing. But what I want you guys to do is stand with your parallel foot alignment. So toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment. We don't want the toes pointing out to the side. We want the feet parallel. And if in any doubt, go a little bit pigeon-toed. It actually kind of challenges your legs and it challenges your hips a little bit more, for most people anyway. We're doing golfer's grip, open palm, pulled back thumbs, 90 degrees here. Fingers are tucked into your hand like so. So you're straight up until that second knuckle and they're tucked in like a little snail. Keep them really rigid, no bending at the wrists. We're going to draw our shoulder blades back and down behind us with the arms out to the side like this, without lifting our chest upwards or poking our head forwards. And also just make sure that your shoulders aren't up around your ears. If they are, you are dominating with your traps and you're going to get neck pain. We want those shoulders as far away from your ears as possible, using the mid-back muscles to pull them down. And from here, We're going to do a minute forwards, off we go. So we're going to breathe in and out of our nose. We're going to relax our belly. We're not forcing anything. My arms are rigid. I'm pulling backwards through my thumbs. There's no bending at my wrists. There's no bending at my elbows. From the side, I'm moving the arms around the shoulder girdle like this. I'm not thrusting my rib cage up and down because that's the spine compensating, and nor am I pecking my head forwards and backwards like a chicken because that's also your spine compensating, but it's the cervical spine, which is the fancy name for your neck compensating. You've got 10 seconds left here. So we're starting to remove imbalance in the arms and in the shoulders and the rib cage by doing this, but also the hips because of what your legs are doing. 3, 2, 1. Have a tiny little break. We are going to be doing exactly the same thing, but from the shoulder girdle, we're going to spin our arms so it faces backwards. And as we do that spin backwards, we call this external rotation of the shoulder. So we're opening up the front of the chest. As we do this, make sure that you're not just flipping your hand. So some people here will bend with their lower arm with their wrists, but not have any movement from here. So you're really trying to open up the front of your kind of bicep area. We pull those shoulders back and down again behind you. The rib cage stays down. The head doesn't peck forwards and backwards. The arms are rigid. A minute backwards, off we go. Relaxing the face, relaxing the jaw, relaxing the belly, maintaining a calm breath. If taking your arms up high causes you pain, you can absolutely do this with your arms lower. You can slow the speed down, you can make smaller circles. There are ways that you can amend this where you're still finding challenge for yourself, but you're not creating pain. So when we do our posture exercises, we are looking for this in-between, between like force and ease. We don't want things to be too easy, but we don't want them to be too forceful. We're looking for challenge without there being pain. And that can come from just simple modifications. Got just over 10 seconds left. Try and keep those elbows straight, wrists straight, arms tight, hands tight, breathing relaxed. 2, 1. And that is time. Exercise number 1 complete. So this is when we're going to start doing our gravity drop exercise. So my step here is perfect with my banister. Like I said, if you don't have this set up at home, just stand with your back against a wall. So have a wall here, parallel feet or pigeon-toed feet if you want, or you can be on your slant board. What we are going to do is come to whatever it is that we're on. We're going to put our toes, our ankles, our knees and our hips in alignment. And we're going to drop our ankles off the side of our stairs. Hopefully you can see in the camera here that I'm leaning forwards from my ankles. And what we want to do is in that side view, have our ankles, our knees, our hips, our shoulders, and our ear in alignment. But we don't want that chest lifting up. So we don't want the rib cage flaring. We want the rib cage down. And I want it to be that you feel a stretch down the back of your Achilles heels, the back of your calves, the back of your hamstrings maybe. And you may even start to feel the front of your hips stretching as they move into extension. So we've got the weight evenly over both of your feet and we've got the weight over your ankles. I don't want you pitching forwards. I'm going to set my timer here for 3 minutes. Off we go. Remember, you don't have to do this on a step if you can't do it. And whilst we're here, we are going to squeeze our shoulder blades together and pull them down away from our ears. Hold and release. So you're going to squeeze your shoulder blades together, pull them down away from your ears, hold and release. So we're doing gravity drop, which is what your ankles upwards are doing. But at the same time, you're doing scapular contractions. So we are contracting your shoulder blades so that they meet behind you in your kind of upper mid-back area, and that they pull down away from the ears into a range of movement called depression. Hold and release. So what the gravity drop position is doing is using the dorsiflexion of your feet, which in layman's terms means calf stretch or shin burn, using the calf stretch shin burn of your feet to unwind torsion that you might have going on through the whole of your legs. So if you're somebody with pokey out, sticky outy feet, but internal knees, for example, this may be a really good exercise for you. It's a really good exercise for people with a rotated pelvis. It's a great one for people with an elevated hip because it really starts to draw the hip down due to the weighting through the feet. Just be mindful that you might be avoiding one of your feet. So I want it to be that the weight distribution feels level through both of the balls of your feet. You're stretching the ankles downwards. You're really trying to create as much length through the back of your legs as you possibly can. You're breathing in and out of your nose, breathing into the bottom of the rib cage using the diaphragm, breathing out through the nose as well. And we're relaxing our face, relaxing our jaw and our belly. And your hands and your arms are sort of doing this funny combination of holding you because they're sort of having to balance you, but at the same time you're trying to get this scapula, this shoulder blade movement going on. So the shoulder blades pull together and then pull down away from your ears. You hold and you release. We've got 30 seconds left here. Make sure that that rib cage isn't bobbing up and down. Make sure that the head is not pecking forwards and backwards. We want a big stretch down the backs of your legs. We want even weight distribution through your feet. You might get a stretch through your hips, and you might start feeling quite a lot of work going on around the shoulder area as well. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Move my laptop back to the normal position. Okay, so next up, we are going to do downward dog. So I believe this was also in last week's routine. Pete Egoscue loves downward dog. It's a difficult whole body exercise. So we're going to put our hands on the floor and we'll start off in an all fours position. We're keeping our wrists directly underneath our shoulders and we're going to spread our fingers really nice and wide. Think of those active starfish clinging onto rocks. Your hands, your fingers are the foundation of this exercise, in my opinion. They are one of the most important parts. Make them actively engage with the floor. Feel that stretch in your palms. Feel the stretch in between your fingers. And don't let that change as we go through the exercise. So you're really kind of pinning down into the pad of your thumb, the pad of your index finger, basing down in the outside edge of the hand as well. Keep firmly contacted with the ground. We're going to tuck our toes under, and without shifting our hands, we're going to come up into a sort of half downward dog to start with. So we're going to keep our knees really bent so that the focus is on trying to get our pelvis driving forwards and our spine straight. So for most people, if you put your feet flat, you're going to go into a posterior pelvic tilt and you're going to go into spinal flexion. This makes this an extremely passive exercise, which doesn't really do very much. We want it to be active. So our toes, our ankles, our knees, and our hips are in alignment. We're going to bend our knees as much as we need, and we're going to roll our pelvis forwards so that we really close up the front of our hips. And your belly and your rib cage are going to move towards your thighs as you do this. I'm getting some cramp going on around my hips, which is nice. The head relaxes. We're not going to worry too much about straightening our legs. We're going to roll that pelvis forwards. We're going to push down into our hands, pull our shoulder blades away from our ears. So we've got that length in our neck again. And we're going to roll our upper arms so that our elbow armpits, the fleshy bits, face forwards. And this should hopefully get your arms and your shoulders being a little bit more active in the movement. And only then can you start trying to straighten your knees, but it's not going to be at the expense of your pelvis. 1 minute here, off we go. And just so you know, the month of August is our yoga theme month. And so we will be deep diving a little bit more into downward dog and other kind of common yoga poses that are very often like quite poorly performed or poorly cued. And I'll make everything that you thought was easy a lot harder. So I'm choosing to keep my knees bent. I'm really choosing to feel this in my hips. My arms are working hard. My head is relaxed, pinning down into those fingers and those hands, rolling the elbows so that they face forwards, drawing the shoulders into the middle of the back, rolling my hips forwards. And I'm feeling a stretch down the back of my legs, but I'm not being too tempted to put my feet on the floor. Keep breathing. So just because the exercise gets more difficult doesn't mean you should lose that calm nasal breath. And that is time. Have a little rest. We are coming on to runner's stretch. So you'll see, if you did last week's class, which was for an anterior pelvic tilt, that there's a lot of crossover. So lots of our posture exercises are good for all sorts of different postures, but for different reasons. So you might give someone who is anterior this type of exercise because it will help them with the alignment through their legs, for example, but you might give it to a rotated person because it helps with pelvic disparity. Each exercise has a plethora of benefits, but the reason why you might give that to someone is different. So we've got our chair because we're going to do assisted runner's stretch today. So we've got a bit of a modification. I've got my left foot in front of me. I've got my right knee behind my left foot and I've got my right toes tucked under. So it's like I'm on a tightrope here through both of my legs. I am going to come up like this, but the principle is very, very similar to what we've just done in downward dog. So if you focus too much on straightening your knees, what you're going to do is possibly hyperextend your knees, tuck your pelvis under and be rounded in your spine, which is once again passive, it's not active. So what we're going to do instead is come up about halfway with this bent knee position so that our focus is on our pelvis, not on our knees or our feet. We're going to roll our pelvis forward so we're really closing up the front of our Pac-Man mouth hips. And then keeping that pelvis driving forward so you can really feel that front hip working. Then we potentially straighten our legs. I'm not going to straighten my left knee because if I do, I'm going to go posterior and I can't feel anything when I do that. My hips are facing straight ahead. There's no twisting through my pelvis. Off we go. We're going to do a minute here. So I'm keeping my breathing nice and relaxed. I'm rolling that pelvis forwards, really trying to find that kind of arch in my lower back. That's going to get the hips waking up. My feet are in alignment with each other on a tightrope. So that my back toes are not pointing out wider than my front ankle, for example. I'm keeping my weight distribution even through both of my legs. So I can definitely feel here I've got a tendency to avoid my left leg, which is my less dominant leg, and I'm wanting to go back towards my right leg. But the longer I stand here, I'm sort of asking my left leg to take more load than it wants to, and I can really feel that hip working and the back of my left knee stretching, which feels really nice. If you want to as well, you can sink into your shoulders here and pull them away from your ears, so you're also turning it into a shoulder exercise too. 3, 2, and 1. So we're going to come down and we're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So this, as I said, is an excellent exercise for a pelvic disparity, especially an anterior posterior pelvic disparity. So you might have one side of your pelvis that's anterior and one side that is posterior, but you could also have rotation and it's great for that too. So I've got my right foot in a straight line in front of my left knee and my left toes are tucked under. And then once again, we're going to come up to that kind of midway stance so that we're really focusing on rolling our pelvis forwards and closing up the angle between the femur, the thigh bone, and the front of the pelvis. So we're really feeling that hip working. When you look down at your legs, you want your toes, your ankles, your knees, and your hips to be facing forwards, not collapsing inwards or twisting or anything like that. The pelvis here is especially going to want to cheat off out to the sides, and we want it facing directly towards your chair. Off we go. So I'm going to walk my foot ever so slightly in on that left-hand side, which is my back one. I'm not being tempted to straighten my right knee, because if I straighten my right knee, I buckle into hyperextension and it turns into compensation at the pelvis and the spine. I'm keeping that knee bent. I'm rolling that pelvis forwards. I'm making sure my weight distribution is even between both of my feet. And what this is doing is creating hip work, but it's also creating a big old stretch down the back of my right knee. I'm also sinking into my shoulders and pulling my shoulders away from my ears so that I'm also turning this into an upper body exercise. No part of you is safe. In every posture exercise, you can always be doing something more if you want to. But if you don't want to, that is also fine. How hard you push these things is up to you. That is time. So you might be pleased to hear that we are coming to frog. So hip opener for a couple of minutes. You can use a cushion here underneath your head if you want to. You can use your posture rolls too, but because that's not in the book, I don't want to teach that. So we're going to teach it how it is in the book. It's coming to frog, and we're going to bring the soles of our feet together and allow our knees to hang out wide. With your lower back, you're kind of looking for this in-between spot where you don't want your lower back really smushed to the floor posteriorly and tucking in your pelvis, but neither do you want to be super anterior and flary in your rib cage. So you're looking for a position where you feel the bottom of your rib cage on the floor, but you're going to feel there to be a slight arch in your lower back. You're going to squeeze the soles of your feet together, and we're going to hold this for 3 minutes. So off we go. So my arms are out to the side. My elbow armpits are facing up towards the ceiling, even though that means that my hands kind of face towards my feet. Alternatively, you can put your hands behind your head if you want, which I do really, really like. I've got my big toe joints touching. I've got my fifth toe joints touching. I've got my heels touching, and they're squeezing together from side to side. So we're not passive here. We're not just letting the knees flop out to the side and the feet not do anything. We're squeezing the soles of the feet together. What this is going to do is wake up your feet, and what that might mean for you is that you get cramp in the arches of your feet or cramp in the calves, something like that. If that happens, that's wonderful. They're waking up. Give yourself a shake and come back to it whenever you're ready. And then we're using this like activation of the feet to get your feet communicating with your hips again. So we're going to start maybe feeling a bit of trembling, a bit of wobbling through the inner hips. You might feel a bit of burning in the outer hips. And these are chains of muscles that originate at your feet starting to switch on properly. So you can't just go after your hips. You've got to go after your feet too, because the movement of the feet stimulate the movement of the hips. Think about what humans are made for and what they do most of. They are creatures of locomotion, of walking, of being on two legs. And when we're on two legs, what are we on? Our feet. Our feet are the sort of catalyst for the rest of the movement of the body when we are walking and running. And this is why I feel so passionately about shoes that stop us from walking like humans. Because if your shoes are impacting your gait, they are impacting your entire body. Your feet are your foundations. They are arguably one of the most important parts of you. And hopefully in this exercise, you'll start to feel them wake up. You maintain that squeeze through the feet. Hopefully you're starting to feel like a little bit more happen around your hips and your pelvis. We're not trying to kind of push our knees down to the floor. We're really focusing on the feet, and you'll start noticing how this creates that change through the rest of your legs and into your hips and your pelvis. Another thing to consider here is that you might be pushing your toes into the ground and slightly lifting your heels off the floor. I want your heels to be on the ground, and it's almost like you're slightly lifting your toes off the floor, and you might find that you then start to feel this more on the outside edges of your hips. So by lifting your toes up off the floor while still squeezing them, you're working your feet in a range of movement called supination, and supination of the feet connects with the lateral edges of your legs, into the lateral hip. So if you want strong glutes and a stable pelvis, we've really got to think about working our feet in this kind of externally rotatory way. That's not really what I want to say, but hopefully you know what I mean. Okay, that is time. So at this point in the routine, just like with last week's one, in the book, Pete Egoscue has got 15 minutes on both legs of supine groin stretch. For the sake of the length of the video, I'm not doing that. But if you have the time and you're watching the recording back, please pause your video now and do supine groin stretch for 15 minutes on either side. It will be well worth it. Investing time in supine groin stretch is always worth it, but I don't want to make these videos too long, so we're not going to do it today. We're going to come on next to an exercise called standing quad stretch. So this is going to be where we need our chair, and we're also going to face the wall as well. And I'm just going to move my mat a little bit closer for the exercise afterwards too. So I would definitely, if this is early days for you, go lower rather than higher, but I'm going to show you this on a higher level as well. So we're going to put our hands on the wall. We've got our feet parallel hip width distance apart, and we're not going to shift them as we take one leg onto our chair like this at a 90-degree angle. We want our knees in alignment with one another. So that might require you to shimmy your chair slightly backwards. So when you look down at your legs, I want your kneecaps in alignment with one another. And I also want your pelvis in alignment from side to side as well. So just notice if one hip is kind of dragging forwards and pull it back. And in this position, what you're going to do is you're going to point your toes and you're going to push down into the top of your foot and the top of your ankle. And you're going to use that traction to tuck under in your pelvis so that you feel a stretch through the front of your hip and the front of your quad on that bent leg side. This is definitely where I would recommend most people to be. But if you are experienced and you're really confident that you know what you're doing, you can go a lot higher on your stretch, but you have to be able to tuck the pelvis under as you do it. So you have to be feeling this in the front of the hip and the thigh, not your lower back. If you're feeling it in your lower back, you're hyperextending your back. And to lead with example, I'm going to do the modified version. So we're going to stay here and we're going to do a minute and a half either side. Off we go. So it's as if I've just chopped off the bottom of my left leg. The alignment through the leg is the same as I look down. My left knee is equal with my right knee. My left hip is equal with my right hip. I'm making sure I don't have one hip lower or higher than the other as well. So you might be hiking one side of your pelvis. Push down into the top of the chair. You're not passive through this foot. We're pointing the toes. You might get cramp in that foot. And we're using that pushing down of the foot to once again connect us to our hips and our pelvic region. We're breathing. We're using the wall for a bit of support. Feeling the front of our hip. Relaxing the jaw. Breathing in and out of the nose and into the lower rib cage. Pointing that foot hard, pushing down into the chair, tucking the pelvis under. We are achieving hip extension, which is one of the main reasons why hips and pelvises start to get really wonky. Because we've all sat down so much from such a young age, our hips become very bunged up. And as they become bunged up, they really pull the pelvis out of alignment. So we're using hip extension here to create better alignment and balance. 3, 2, and 1. So exactly the same thing on the other side, but I do recommend having like a little bit of a check-in in between. Toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment, not shifting that standing leg as you take the other leg onto the chair. When you look down at your knees, you want them to be level with one another. So you don't want one further in front of the other. Likewise with the hips, off we go. 1.5 minutes here. Pointing my right foot, pushing down onto my chair, tucking my pelvis under, feeling that stretch at the front of the hip. My rib cage does not lift up, so we're not rib cage flaring here. If your hips struggle to extend, if they lack function, you will compensate with your spine. And so in real terms for you, that means you're going to feel your lower back. Or you might notice that your rib cage wants to lift up. Be on pelvic duty. So be kind of looking down quite every now and then, just making sure that one hip's not further forwards than the other, that one hip isn't higher than the other, one knee hasn't drifted forwards. You're really active in that bent leg. You're also active in your standing leg as well. Oh, I'm getting a lovely cramp. So I'm going to shake that off. I pointed my foot a bit harder than I was doing previously and I had a big cramp in my calf. And I'm going to create a little bit more of a, because I suspect I'm in a bit of a hip hike on my right-hand side. So I'm going to drop my right hip a little bit lower, than my brain wants me to. And then that's giving me a bit more stretch through the front of my right hip. Suddenly got quite hot, which is normally a nice sign that you're challenging your body in a way that it needs to be challenged. 3, 2, and 1. Okay. We don't need our chair again, so you can put that away if you want to. Next up, we're also coming back to an exercise that we did last week, and that is what they called, back in the day, abdominals, but we would probably call them abdominal crunches now. So we're coming into our squat position here. Toes, ankles, knees, and hips are in alignment with one another, really watching that the toes are not wider than the ankles. You want your big toe joints on the wall, don't let them lift up. Really making sure throughout this exercise that your toes, your ankles, your knees, and your hips are in alignment. So you can use a cushion or a block here, and that's what they instruct now, but they didn't back in the early 90s. And that just helps you to stop your knees from like wobbling in or wobbling out. You're in this squat position, so my hips are on the floor. I'm not tucking my pelvis under and like hovering through my coccyx. My coccyx, my tailbone is grounded, and I have this zigzag pattern from my hip to my knee to my ankle to my toes. My hands are going to interlink behind my head, and what we are going to do are those little baby crunches again. We are not trying to come up high, we are trying to do this functionally. So we're not flinging our elbows in front of our ears and using momentum and force to drag our head up. Because if we're doing that, all we're doing is strengthening a like forward head posture. What we want to do is keep our head heavy in our hands, and we want our elbows to stay in alignment with our shoulders. So we're staying in thoracic extension, but at the same time, we're creating this lumbar flexion. So the rib cage, the lower rib cage, using the abdominals, pulls itself down into the ground, the upper back stays long, and we're going to look slightly behind us on the ceiling so that we're not encouraged to crank up too far. We hold and we release. And we're going to move through that for 2 minutes. Off we go. So your feet stay on the wall. They're not pushing aggressively into the wall. You're not really ramming the soles of your feet into the wall, but they are on it and without the big toe joints lifted. Looking slightly behind you in the ceiling. The head is heavy, the elbows don't come further forwards than the ears. It is the lower rib cage pulling down into the ground that creates this angle of lift off that we have in our upper body, but the upper body stays long because we're trying to encourage an open chest position, shoulders that are behind us. And the reason that this exercise is in this routine for rotation and imbalance is it's great for your pelvis, it's great for your legs, but this exercise is brilliant for balancing off a wonky rib cage. So if you have like scoliosis, if you have like just a twisted rib cage, which lots of people have, this exercise is really starting to wake up your abdominals more in a more balanced way. And the more balanced that your abdominals are and the muscles around your torso, the more balanced your rib cage will be. Think about your abdominals as being rib cage movers rather than hip and pelvic movers. They are hip and pelvic movers, but not as much as they are rib cage movers. And too many people use their abdominals to tuck their pelvis under or sort of do things with their pelvis. And then they start to compensate on behalf of the strong, powerful hips and pelvic muscles that should be doing that movement. And we become very stiff and locked in our lower back. Unfortunately, there are far too many people thinking they're doing themselves good by training their core, but actually they're making themselves stiffer and actually weaker and more dysfunctional. And that is time. Okay, what have we next on our list? Oh, we've got supine foot circles. Again, I'm sorry. This is super important. So if you've got one foot that's facing in a slightly different direction to the other, your foundations are off. So we have to work our foundations. So I can't remember which side I started on last time, but it doesn't really matter. So we're going to take our legs long. You can have your head on a pillow here if you want to. And before we start actually moving our feet, we're just going to pull backwards through the tops of our feet, keeping toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment. You're not lifting your Achilles heels off the floor here. So if your Achilles heels lift off the floor, you're hyperextending your knees rather than dorsiflexing your feet. Keeping one leg in that position, I'm going to take my left hand, I'm going to take my hands under my left leg and around my left thigh. My left shin stays parallel to the floor. It doesn't drop, it doesn't go high, the knee doesn't fall in, the knee doesn't fall out. The back of my neck stays long, my breathing is calm. We're going to do a minute here, outward circles of this foot, off we go. So my shin is staying completely still. My knee is staying completely still. I want you to move really slowly and deliberately here to make sure that you are isolating your ankle, your midfoot, and your toes. And through the ankle, midfoot, and your toes, you're trying to create as much movement as you can. So you want to point the toes as the foot moves away, and you want to flex them back towards you. Don't be surprised if you feel and hear lots of kind of clicking and crunching and cracking. That is how stiff your feet currently are. But the more that you get them clicking and crunching and crackling, the more you are starting to mobilize them and put the joints into different positions. So generally speaking, in posture, if you ever hear any of your bones crack, then that's a brilliant thing. You're being your own chiropractor, and you're putting your bones into alignment, which is quite literally the whole purpose of postural alignment therapy. So don't be scared of it. The ankle stays still. Oh, we've gone over. Sorry. I won't make us do more. Swap directions. So same foot, but just swapping directions. So you've got the hip, the knee, and the ankle are all in alignment with each other. The shin is parallel with the floor. That right foot is still busy dorsiflexing away. So you might be feeling the front of your shin on that right-hand side burning. You might be feeling the calf stretching. You're relaxing your face. You're keeping your breathing nice and calm. We don't want your head tilting backwards into hyperextension. If you feel like your head is tilting backwards, then put a pillow or two underneath your head just to make sure that you're not straining that upper body in compensation on behalf of your feet. We want your feet working here, but not really that much else. Although saying that, you have got one hip in flexion and one hip in extension, so they'll be doing stuff. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Final minute on this foot. We're going to point and we're going to flex. And this is definitely a range of movement where you need to be really cautious that your ankle's not moving up and down. So lots of people here will move the ankle up and down to compensate. The shin stays still so that the ankle can pivot forwards and backwards into plantar flexion, pointing, dorsiflexion, the flexing backwards, opening up the front of the ankle, closing the front of the ankle. Keep your right foot super active. Keep the Achilles heel down on that right hand side. Trying to keep the left leg still in alignment with the hip and the right leg still in alignment with the hip, and keeping your breathing nice and calm. You've got just over 10 seconds left here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. There might be some of you cursing me, I know that. So we're going to pull those feet back towards us. Your left foot is probably going to be on fire as you lift up that right leg if you're doing the same as me. So your left shin is going to be screaming at you because it's already worked hard, but that is good. We need that left shin to have its tantrum. Same thing goes, outward circles here, off we go. So my right shin is parallel to the floor. My right knee is completely still. My right shin is as still as it can be. I'm turning the ankle outwards and turning the foot outwards. It's not about speed, because certainly in this exercise, if you've got stiff feet, you will likely use speed to avoid function. We're going slowly. We're really trying to draw out as much movement as possible through this foot. Really trying to point the toes and flex the toes. Don't forget the left foot, so make sure you're feeling that left shin as the foot pulls back towards you. Keep breathing. The legs are in alignment. The head can be on a pillow. Your shoulders are away from your ears. They shouldn't be up around your ears. If you're doing that, you're using your hands to really like cling on. And if you really can't avoid that, then you can take your hands away and make your leg work harder, but stop your upper body from compensating. But that definitely does make it quite a lot harder. Time, swap directions. So right foot turns inwards, hip, knee, and ankle all stay in alignment. The foot pivots around the ankle joints. The knee isn't bobbing around. The shin isn't bobbing around. We are looking for a wonderful symphony of all sorts of cries of anger from your foot and your ankle and your calf and your shin as they are being forced to wake up and kind of kick into action. This screaming from your lower legs may be the thing that gets rid of your neck pain or your headaches or your jaw tension or your shoulder pain. So really don't underestimate it. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So we've got 1 minute here, point and flex. Again, really making sure that the ankle isn't lifting up and down and the shin stays parallel. Keeping the back of the neck long, tucking that chin in if you must. Using a cushion if you want to. No pulling of any faces. Take a break if you need to. Breathing calmly in and out of your nose and into your rib cage. Relaxing your jaw, relaxing your belly. Don't forget the left foot. Get that left shin screaming at you. My right foot feels really quite stiff today, which is interesting. It doesn't normally feel as stiff as it feels, but I feel like it's like something else is unlocked and then it's kind of revealing this stiffness in my right foot to me in a way that I don't normally experience. So I think that's a good thing. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We are moving on to Crocodile. And yes, we are definitely going to be overrunning by probably about 10 minutes. If you have to go, I forgive you. But we've got to get all our exercises in. So for Crocodile, we're taking our arms out to the side. We've got our active starfish hands again. So we're palms facing down, spreading the fingers wide, and you're really going to push back and down onto the floor behind you. So you're feeling your hands, your forearms, your triceps, and your shoulders all waking up. You're going to try and draw your shoulder blades away from your ears and together without flaring that rib cage upwards. You're going to take your legs long and you're going to pull your feet back towards you in dorsiflexion, just like we've been doing. You're going to stack your Achilles heel of your right foot on top of the big toe and the second toe on that left-hand side. And with the right foot on top, really keeping those hands, those arms, and those shoulders pinned down, especially the right shoulder, you're going to twist towards your left-hand side. You're pulling your feet back towards you. You're turning your head away. The shoulders must stay on the ground. Don't let them lift. You're going to squeeze your quads, your front thigh muscles. You're going to squeeze your glutes, your butt muscles. You're going to breathe, and we're going to stay here. Off we go. So we're dorsiflexing the feet. We're still trying to keep those shins on fire. We're squeezing our quads. We're squeezing our glutes to try and create pelvic stability. The pelvis is rotating. The hips are extending. The spine is rotating. The arms and the shoulders are stabilizing. Breathing into any stiffness, relaxing your face, really pulling those feet back towards you. Get the shins burning, squeeze the quads, squeeze the glutes. Keep twisting as far over as you can, but without letting that opposite shoulder lift up. That's crucial. If the opposite shoulder lifts up, you're rotating your whole body. You're not creating this kind of like counter rotation, which is what we're going after. This is such a good exercise for reducing rotation throughout the whole body. We're wringing you out like a towel. 3, 2, 1. Back to the start. Same thing goes again on the other side. So active starfish hands, 90 degrees at your armpits, pushing down through hands, forearms, upper arms and shoulders. Don't let the wrists come up off the floor. We flex our feet back. We put our left ankle in between our big toe on that right-hand side. Sorry, the big toe and the second toe on the right-hand side. And we're going to spin towards the right-hand side, only as far as our left shoulder will permit. Pull the shoulders away from the ears. Flex those feet back. Squeeze your quads. Squeeze your glutes. Keep twisting. Off we go. Keep breathing. So my head is completely turned in the opposite direction to my feet. My feet are trying to drive as much to the right-hand side as they can, whilst my head and my shoulders are kind of, or my left shoulder is kind of driving down towards the left-hand side. I squeeze my glutes, I squeeze my quad, really focus on pulling the feet back to get that burn through the shin. Relaxing the face, relaxing the breathing, not clenching the belly, still breathing in and out of the nose, into the diaphragm. Noticing differences from side to side here, stopping anything that aggravates normal pain, but just expect new things. Anything weird, anything strange, anything different is a sign that you are creating change, and that is what posture is all about. Keep trying to pull those shoulders away from the ears. Feet are active, butt is active, front thighs are active, and that is time. We are moving on to pelvic tilts. So a little bit more relaxing than that last exercise. So knees bent, feet flat on the floor in this like hook lying position. I personally really love putting my hands behind my head when I do pelvic tilts, but you can have your hands out to the side. It's whatever suits you most here. Toes, ankles, knees, and hips are in alignment. And what we are going to do is move our pelvis, not our rib cage. So this is not about you thrusting your rib cage up and down off the floor. This is about the front of your hip joint closing and opening. So this is what I want you to focus on. It's those Pac-Man hips again at the front of the hip joint. So you are going to roll your pelvis forwards so that the space between the femur and the pelvis closes up. As you do that, your lower back is going to lift off the ground, but your rib cage doesn't flare upwards. So you're closing the hip, you're not flaring the rib cage. Then to go backwards, we're going to squeeze our glutes, our bottom muscles, and we're going to roll our pelvis under so that we smush our lower back onto the floor. And then we repeat again. Off we go. So we are rolling into an anterior pelvic tilt, squeezing our glutes backwards into a posterior pelvic tilt. The knees stay in alignment with the hips, so don't let them fall in or fall out. And really observe in this one differences that you might feel from side to side in your pelvis. So I think that this exercise can be one of the easiest ones to feel how imbalanced you might be. You might just be super conscious that one side of your pelvis barely moves. You might notice that one side of your pelvis feels quite comfortable in one direction, but not the other. If you're getting pain, like in your lower back or anything, like your hip or your knee, reduce the range of movements, go a little bit more slowly. Notice here that I'm not lifting my bum off the floor in like a bridge motion. I'm squeezing my glutes to flatten my pelvis and my lower back into a posterior pelvic tilt, but I'm not lifting into a bridge. My rib cage is not flaring up and down. The rib cage is following the motion as the pelvis moves forwards as I close up the front of my hip joint. Relaxing the face, relaxing the breathing. Got just over 30 seconds left here, and we've got just 2 exercises left. Upper spinal floor twist, probably got to be one of my all-time favorites. And then finishing with air bench again, which is just a fantastic one for getting rid of rotation in the body. Hopefully this is starting to feel like a little bit more fluid the more that you do it. We're not using our abdominals to tuck our pelvis under. So you might notice that you're trying to like squeeze your belly to flatten your lower back. I want you to squeeze your glutes to roll your pelvis to flatten your lower back. This is going to help you out so much when it comes to functional walking, functional running, functional everything. And that is time. So I'm going to grab my pillow here just because I really like using my pillow in upper spinal floor twist. And this is where we're going to come side lying into our sort of fetal type position. Our knees are at hip height and our ankles are directly underneath our knees. So I don't want your feet tucked into your ankles are underneath your knees. Sorry, I said the right thing. You don't want your feet tucked into your bum. So if someone's looking down at you, it's like you're sat on a chair. This top leg needs to keep pushing forwards so that it doesn't drift away from the bottom knee. So this exercise looks like this. We're opening up the upper body, but we want the pelvis and the hips and the knees to be facing towards the camera. If you're imagining that you're being me filming the class. So your hips and your pelvis face in one direction as your upper back twists around that axis. So we're trying to squeeze you out again like a towel. If the knee drifts, you're taking your pelvis with you, and so you're not creating that towel wringing out motion. So keep driving that top knee forward so it doesn't slip. Your hands are as if you're diving off a diving board. I'm taking my right arm over the top. I'm trying to keep my right elbow in alignment with the shoulder so we don't let it swoop under, we don't let it swoop over. We try and take it directly over so that we feel the stretch through the front of the chest that maybe your body is trying to avoid. More active starfish hands with my left hand. I push down and I push away through my left hand on my right knee. I'm not pulling that knee towards me. And as I push down and away, it creates this leverage for me to lengthen my spine and draw my head away from my pelvis to create length, imagining a golden thread pulling your head away. Opening up here, off we go. So my head is following in the direction of my right arm. Relaxing my face, breathing in and out of my nose, breathing into the diaphragm. We are not trying to get our hands to touch the floor, because if you focus on your hands, you're going to do funny things through your arms to compensate. The ultimate goal is for the kind of back of your right rib cage and the back of your right shoulder to touch the floor. So it's the shoulders we're trying to get to the floor, not the hands. You might notice that your right shoulder is rolling out in front of you, and I want you to pull it back and down behind you so it's nestled into your mid-back, much like it was when we started in that standing arm circles. Keep breathing. Keep pushing that right knee forward so it doesn't slide away. You might feel a bit winded in this one. Use that left hand, spread it nice and wide. You're pushing down on that right knee to lengthen your left arm, and it's going to help you then draw your head away from your pelvis to create more length and more rotation. Breathing into the back of the ribs. Not letting the hand drift down towards your pelvis, not letting the hand drift up towards your ear. You're really trying to keep the front of that chest open. Try and find the strongest stretch that you can tolerate without causing yourself pain or without losing your breath through the front of your right shoulder and the right arm. Just over 20 seconds left on this side. Don't let that right knee drift. Length through the spine. I sometimes like doing a few kind of pelvic tilts here as well, but that is me deviating away from what Egoscue says, so I need to stop doing Ellie modifications. Don't listen to me. 3, 2, 1. Good job. So come back to center. Give yourself a brief second to recover. You might feel really winded. So what we're doing here is opening up the ribs, we're opening up the intercostal muscles, and we're stretching out really powerful muscles like our spinal erectors, our quadratus lumborum, which always sounds like a Harry Potter spell, and also the top of our hip flexors. So the top of your hips go into the bottom of your rib cage. So if your hips are really bunged up, the rib cage is going to be really bunged up. So that's why you might feel so winded. So turning the other side, we've got knees at 90 degrees, ankles underneath the knees, not tucked into the bottom. I'm on my right hand side, so my left leg is on top. I don't want that left knee moving away from my right knee, so I keep pushing it forwards. Arms are out in front of me as if I'm on a diving board. My right hand spreads nice and wide, active starfish on that left hand. My left arm goes over the top. Off we go here, breathe. Remember, your mission is not to get your hand on the floor. Your mission is to get your shoulder on the floor. And the shoulder is only going to touch the floor when your rib cage and when your spine start to give. So there is no point cranking that hand and that arm towards the ground. You won't win. You might compensate, but you're not going to actually get what we want to happen. You're going to roll that left shoulder blade back and down behind you. Activate the muscles of the mid-back. The fingers stretch wide, so more active starfish hands. The hand drives away from the body to create as much stretch through the arms as possible, but we're not cranking the arms and the shoulders down towards the floor. Don't forget about that left knee driving forwards. Using that right hand to draw the head away from the pelvis. If you want to be naughty and do some Ellie modifications, I really like doing a few like pelvic tilts here. I just think it feels really nice, but that isn't in the Egoscue book, so it depends on how religious you want to be towards the gospel truth of Mr. Egoscue. Keep twisting your head as much as you can without pain, breathing into the side of the ribs. There is no forcing here. There is allowing, there is stretching of the hands, there is sort of energy through the arms, there's energy through different parts of you, but there's no forcing. Top knee pushes forward slightly so it doesn't drift. You've got just over 15 seconds left. 10 seconds left. 3, 2, and 1. So a brief moment of recovery here. And then we are going to get ourselves up into our final exercise. And we're going to do air bench. So air bench is exactly what we did last week. You might want to have shoes just depending on your floor setup. So if you're on carpet, you might want it, but I'm all right with my sticky mat. And we're going to aim for 2 minutes here. So we're coming back against the wall. We've got toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment, watching that your toes are not wider than your ankles. And you're probably going to want to have your ankles further away from the wall than maybe you think you need to start with. We're sliding down. So we're at 90 degrees in our ankles, 90 degrees in our knees. We're not letting the knees fall in or fall out. Off we go. And our mission here is to really use our feet to push into the floor. So our feet push into the floor And what that does is it really helps to push our pelvis and our lumbar spine into the wall. So I don't want you focusing too much on your arms and your shoulders, because you might lift your rib cage to do that. Allow the upper body to be hunched if you need to. I want you really drilling the back of your pelvis and your lumbar spine into the wall. You'll feel your quads wake up, you'll feel your calves wake up, you'll feel all sorts of things wake up. We're relaxed in our upper body, we're relaxed in our belly, relaxed in our breathing, relaxed in our face. If you need less challenge, go up a bit. If you want more challenge, go down a bit. Really focusing on the feet, spreading those toes wide whilst keeping the feet parallel, pinning into the big toe joints, pushing the feet kind of down and forwards into the ground. You'll really feel how that fires up your thighs, pushes that pelvis backwards. We are about 45 seconds left to go. I'm gonna have a quick little break, and then I'm gonna come back down again. Breaks are always allowed. And then I'm just trying to really ground my knobbly bit of scoliosis against the wall. And I like to kind of stretch into it a little bit. It feels really good. And lifting up. So really think about the pelvis and the lumbar spine here. Air bench is basically a standing and more active version of static back. The exercise principles are the same. It's great for pelvic balance. It's great for lumbar balance. It's great for rib cage balance. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Well done, everybody. So that is the end of routine 2. Thank you for bearing with me, because it did overrun like I thought, because there were quite a lot of exercises. And we're just going to do our standing assessment again. So shaking off what you've just done and closing your eyes, not trying to stand differently, and just notice what you feel. Has your pain reduced? Has your tension reduced? Are you standing differently in terms of weight distribution from side to side? Maybe you notice that your shoulders are like further back behind you without you having to put them there. If all of that stuff's happened, then great, that was a good routine for you. But if you notice that anything feels worse, I want you to ask yourself, what might you have done in that routine that possibly made you feel worse? Because there was probably lots of stuff that was fine, but sometimes if your body doesn't want you doing something, all it takes is like 1 or 2 exercises and it can trigger that pain. So you need to identify what are the exercises that do that for you. So that's